My name is Sandeep Arora. I lead GBS at the Clorox Company, which is kind of a startup from within 100-plus-year-old company. So it's a super exciting journey that we are on. Well, the switch, because it is focusing on customer experience, kind of targets what each of our customer personas really want as an outcome from GBS. So that targeting helps us kind of manage the expectation at an individual persona level, and that's what creates superior customer experience because of doing that. So if you pick the right outcomes that matter to each of your personas, then you have more likelihood of keeping them happy or satisfied with what GBS is providing. We're in a startup kind of journey, but what we have done is really tried and understood the journey that the company's on, the transformation journey, the digital journey that the company's on, and how GBS can very ubiquitously as a capability kind of influence that and make that happen. So in doing so, we've kind of created our own aspirations of being really boundaryless across the company and working across the company with whatever, opportunistically going into white spaces. Also be super touchless in whatever we do, which is create digital outcomes and happy path transactions is how I call it, so that nobody really touches them, to then get to really noiseless outcomes, right? So if you're truly boundaryless in how you're approaching problems, you're approaching them with a digital touchless lens, then you ought to not have noise in the process. So we have XLAs across these three verticals that then help us manage our process outcomes for each of our identified personas. Look, XLAs itself create that customer focus, but the way to think about it is you need to establish baselines, measure where those baselines are in context of the external marketplace. These benchmark data are available and you can get them. So, once you understand where you are in the spectrum compared to your peers, then you can craft a transformation journey to get from third, fourth quartile to top quartile. And in doing so, you would craft out a similar, like a lean journey, where you'd look at the data, you'd understand the why on why an outcome is in fourth quartile instead of first or second quartile, and create that transformation journey to get to the true north of a process. This is a whole concept of change management, creating a culture where everybody thinks about that boundaryless. We say boundaryless, but everybody looks at boundaryless differently. Boundaryless can be, hey, I don't worry about where the process is it in my ownership chain or not? We just go in and make impact. Or boundaryless is also about never rest that the process is done, because the standards external are moving, so how do we move with that standard, and so on and so forth. So the idea about creating that continuous improvement culture also rests with these three aspirational verticals that we have, which is, if you're boundaryless, you ought to be continuously thinking about, hey, what's my next hurdle that I need to cross? Also, creating touchless outcomes automatically creates an environment where you are consistently evaluating your machines to make sure they are creating the right noiseless outcomes. Data is a big challenge, right? That is wherever we start with these kind of journeys, data becomes one of the biggest challenges. So it is important to understand your data strategy and how your data flows. What is the data warehouse? How do you get consistent data to come into you so that you can constantly measure and monitor? But outside of that, change management, culture shift, all those are important parameters, as well as this whole notion that managing the process with an outcome metric is good enough, right? It is a big change from traditional GBS thought process of, oh no, SLAs are important and KPIs are important. Yes, they are important, but if you're really customer obsessed and thinking about it from a customer lens, then always hinge them to that experience level agreement and then work backwards from there, right? And of course, understanding your personas is a big challenge, right? Oftentimes, you will focus on the top layer, not on the middle layer or the ground layer, and that will also create challenges because the SLAs that I talk about not being important for the top layer are super important for the folks that are consuming that service on a day-to-day basis. They want on time, they want to understand when am I going to get it, what am I going to get. That becomes SLA, and for that persona, that's the right experience level agreement. But as you go up the chain, they don't really care about day-to-day operations and so on. All they care about is my metric truly being met or not? Well, I mean, I'm back after 4 years, so it is really good to be back amongst, peers, and the world is changing, so it's good to see that. There's much more buzz about Gen AI. I mean, when in the opening remarks, it was pretty clear GBSs are evolving to be more opportunistic, filling up white spaces, being more capability driven, being more around, hey, how do we buy capability so that there is speed to value? All that is exciting to hear, and of course, I think Gen AI and machine learning, all of that is a game changer in the shared services space or GBS space, and all that is super exciting. COVID was a tough time for us in the GBS space. I think everybody will acknowledge that, and sometimes just that you just couldn't make time to come out and participate in a 3-4 day. Even today, this time I'm here for a day, but I'm just making the most of the day and making all the connections.